So Shannon, scale of 1 to 10 for your team. How much is Pat Bev going to help them?
I gave it a 7. I like the deal a lot. I'm not necessarily I love the deal because I don't believe Patrick Beverley is the defender that he once was, but he's better at defending than anybody the Lakers currently have. And Skip, maybe he can replace some of the defensive prowess that they lost in Caruso, that they lost in KCP, which was a lot of their defensive identity, and that's why they plummeted to 21st of the defensive rating, defensive efficiency last year. That was their calling card their first couple of years, is that they were really good on the perimeter with KCP, with Caruso getting on the floor, getting steals, getting loose balls. Then you had AD to protect the paint. When they won the championship, you look at what they had. They had AD, they had Caruso, they had Dwight Howard, they had KCP. They were a very, very good defensive team. I believe THT needs to go somewhere where he can have the ball more in his hands. He's he's probably better suited for that role as opposed to a catch and shoot, not getting the ball in his hand, especially with AD, especially with LeBron and Russ on the team. Maybe we're going to talk about this a little later, but maybe this definitely is a sign of things to come. And plus, what Patrick Beverley brings to the table, Skip, is what Darvin Ham is looking for. A defensive intensity, a defensive mindset, and a role player that understands his role and willing to master that. I'm not trying to do anything else other than my role. I don't need to average 20 points. I don't need to average a triple-double. We have guys that can put the ball in the basket at a high rate. I'm to draw charges. I'm here to be an irritant, and I'm here to do as good a job as I possibly can of keeping point guards out of the paint. The Lakers could not keep anyone, especially the guards, out of the paint. And so what you got guys that were in the layup line or they were driving and kicking. So hopefully this adds something, but we're not done.
Oh, really? We'll discuss that in just a couple of minutes. But first, back to this trade. I believe that somewhere in Salt Lake City, Danny Ainge and the new coach Will Hardy, late of my San Antonio Spurs, are grinning. They are celebrating because they just pulled off trading a 34-year-old Patrick Beverley, who's been now on 4 teams in 2 years, for a 21-year-old THT. Remember THT on TNT 2 years ago?
Yes.
Remember last year he had a 40-point night, and
He did.
I guarantee you, Danny Ainge and Will Hardy are thinking, we just got a 21-year-old potential starter, if not even star, at wing for our team going forward as we reload and rebuild in Utah. So I believe they think they just stole THT from you. And how quickly you give up on somebody because you were driving his bandwagon 2 years ago, and then as he started to fail last year because the team was failing, 33 and 49, missed the play-in tournament, you completely abandoned a clutch client.
No.
A clutch client.
No, Skip. But here's the thing. Yes, he's 21, but he can't give the Lakers the value that he could possibly give Utah for the simple fact of AD, LeBron, and Russ. So, yes, it's nice, but give me the old car that can function as opposed to the new car that I can get no value out of. I'm not going to get the value that THT could bring in Utah. I can't get that kind of production in LA, Skip, because he's not going to have the ball in his hands enough.
Okay, I guess that your man LeBron had to sign off on trading Lil Bro, a clutch client, to Utah, right?
Well, it's kind of like LeBron has the same type of power in LA that who has in Brooklyn. So I guess he had to sign off on Seth Curry. I guess he had to sign off on James Harden. I guess he had to sign off on all these other, the Blake Griffins and the LaMarcus Aldridge. I guess he had to sign off on those, right? Oh, really? I'm just curious. Yes?
I guess every time I hold LeBron's feet to the fire, you have to change the subject and bring somebody else into the equation because you can't defend what LeBron just did.
Skip.
He just told
what did he just
the
do?
powers that be. He told Rob Pelinka, ship him out. Ship him out to Utah. I'm done with him. I'm done.
No. Whoa. You said LeBron had no leverage. When LeBron signed the contract, you said LeBron had
individual
Yes, that's
leverage.
exactly what you said. What, so how did he get him shipped out then? So how did he get THT if he got no individual leverage? How did he get him shipped out?
Do you believe Rob Pelinka communicated with LeBron before he finalized this deal and said, LeBron, are you okay with this? And LeBron said,
no.
Yep.
Skip. No, but you just told me, you just told the entire world LeBron James had no power. You've been telling that. That's why he signed.
Well, they just called his
so
bluff.
how was
like, I'm going to huff and puff and blow your house. No, you're not. You're going to retire a Laker. That's what you want to do. You want to live in Hollywood.
Okay, he has no individual power, yet you said he got THT shipped out. How?
Well, he had to sign off on it, so he did, and that's fine. Okay, let's go back to
So he has power.
Okay, well, whatever. They're just going to go to the face of the franchise and face of the league, and because he is a clutch client, say, are you okay with this? Yeah, I'm okay with it. Okay, so now back to Pat Bev. I love Pat Bev. I love everything about him because I like his edge. I like his mental and physical toughness. I like the way he competes. I like the way he irritates the other team. I thought he did a lot of really good things for Minnesota. He did a lot of good things for the Clippers that I love. But you know and I know he will self-destruct when you least need him to. And remember, I'm pretty sure it went all the way to the top of the food chain at the Clippers. It went up to Jerry West, who said, we just can't live with this anymore, because you remember what Pat Bev did to Chris Paul the night Chris Paul scored 41 in the elimination game at Staples 2 years ago after he hit 7 out of 8 threes. And what did Pat Bev do, if we could see it right now? Pat Bev, as the game is winding down, just goes after Chris Paul and just shoves him and knocks him down. And it's such an all-time bad cheap shot that the great Jerry West, the logo, shouldn't be anymore, but he was the logo, is the logo. He just said, hey, I've seen enough. That's enough. Get rid of him. And they shipped him out, obviously. So that's the Pat Bev you're going to have to deal with. But he will make a play for you. He will get up he'll get up under somebody's skin, up in somebody's face. And remember the Christmas Day game in 2019? Remember the end of the game, LeBron tries to shoot a three, and little tiny Pat Bev was on him, if we could see this play, and gets the ball on the way up, and it manages to bounce off LeBron's head and out of bounds, and it's game over. What a defensive stop that was by Patrick Beverley. Okay, that's the kind of stuff that I love. Unfortunately, you're still stuck with a Laker who has nothing but hate for Patrick Beverley. The blood is about as bad as you can get between Russell Westbrook and Patrick Beverley. And how they're going to coexist, I don't know, unless you're going to tell me that, in fact, they are going to successfully trade Russell Westbrook, which I will believe when I see. I just think it's next to impossible. But if we can reiterate what's happened between these two, if we could see what started, I don't know where we are in the flow right now, but that first night was that April 24th game in 2013 in the game 2 of the first round series between Houston and Oklahoma City. And Russ tried to call timeout, and Pat Bev broke the...
Got clipped.
Yeah. I'm going to say that Pat broke the unwritten rule. It's not a rule because the ball's still live, obviously, but he tries to knock the ball out from under the arm of Russ, who's trying to hold it under his arm so he can call timeout. And he caught his knee, and it was a little freakish. It wasn't that dangerous of a move to me, but he tore some cartilage, and it was a bad cartilage tear because it required more serious surgery than usual, and it cost Russ the rest of the playoffs. So that started it, and then we had 4 more incidents, if we could just see them in a row. There's one in 2014, 17, 18, and 19 between these two, and it just escalated. Cheap shots, trash talk, one after another. I think we're going to roll them through now. Here we go. And it's just one thing after another, and they're shaming each other, and Russ is doing rock the baby on him, and then Pat Bev's doing rock the baby back on the players who are guarding him, and it just went from bad to worst. So my bottom line on this feud between these two is Pat Bev is such a pro's pro that he doesn't care. Like, he'll shrug it off and be Russ's teammate. I don't think Russ can shrug it off. I think Russ is going to be threatened by Pat Bev because if Russ is still a Laker, Pat Bev's going to take some of Russ's minutes. And if Russ is still a Laker, I believe that it will just turn his stomach that he has to share a bench with Patrick Beverley. I don't think he'll ever get over what's transpired. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you're probably right, Skip. I think it really came to a head when you mentioned he tried to call that timeout.
Yep.
And Pat Bev undercut him.
He did.
And that was the beginning of the end when Russ started having the knee issues. And that knee hadn't been quite right, although he would later, average a triple-double, win MVP, become an all-NBA player. But I think that was where the bad blood officially started. Now, there probably was a situation where I don't really like this guy. I think the guy goes above and beyond what is necessary to play defense. I think that's how Russ was thinking. But I don't think Pat Bev had, up until that point, I could be wrong, done anything that Russ really thought went over the line. I think he thought that it's understood. You see me calling the timeout, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I've seen guys try to swipe at the ball, Skip, but I've never seen anybody do what Pat Bev tried to do, which was like go under, under and try to swipe the ball away like that.
He tried to snake it.
So he ended up clipping Russ's knee.
He did.
Yeah, he ended up clipping Russ's knee.
Yeah.
And I think Russ had to have a couple of surgeries on that knee.
He had a couple of surgeries. The first one didn't work. And usually on these meniscus tears, it's just scope. I know I've had 3 on my little level and bounced right back from them. But if you tear it deep into the cartilage, that cushion, if you tear it too deep, you have to take too much of it out, and it will, as you well know, it will plague you for the rest of your life. Fortunately, in my cases, they didn't have to clip much of the cartilage off. It was just a minor little flap tear. But Russ had a bad one, thanks to Pat Bev, and he's still paying the price for that. And yet, Shannon, do you remember what Russ said about Pat Bev's defense? This was back in November of 2019. Remember this quote?
He said he fooling y'all.
Yeah, he said, Pat Bev trick y'all, man, like he plays defense. He don't guard nobody, man. It's just running around doing nothing, said Pat Bev of said Russell Westbrook of Pat Bev's defense. And it was a hilarious quote to me. There's probably some truth to it, but in running around, he irritates, he distracts. It may be a lot of smoke and mirrors, what he's doing, but it can discombobulate guys trying to dribble the basketball. He'll steal the ball, he'll knock it out of your hands, he'll push your offense deep, he'll do things that a veteran, tough player will consistently do. I thought he brought an edge of toughness to the T-Wolves last year that really benefited them. And down the stretch of those games against the Grizzlies, he was in the ball game. He played to the buzzer because he'll make nice little plays. He's not a wizard with the basketball. He's not a great passer, but he knows how to play, and he knows how to distract. And so because of that, I give you high marks because LeBron needs an enforcer type. I mean, not that Pat Bev's that physical, he's not that big, but LeBron, as we all know, is more of a lover than a fighter. He doesn't want to fight anybody. He's not going to push anybody around. So the edge that Pat Bev brings will help bring some of the edge, as you suggest, back to the Lakers.
Yeah, I think the thing is, Skip, look, as we start to get older, defense, it's harder for guys to play defense. Kobe wasn't playing defense in year 15 like he was in year 8. Jordan wasn't playing defense, although he was still an elite defender.
He was.
Skip, it gets harder and harder to sit in that chair for 30, 34, 35 minutes.
Agreed.
But I think what they got this guy for, Skip, is a role. See, he understands his role. What Russell Westbrook doesn't understand, he's not a role player.
Yeah.
He's not needed to give you a triple-double, Skip, and go play 30 points. So he's not understanding of his role. And I think they went out and got guys like, look, but I don't think they're done yet. I don't, Skip, it's hard for me to see. We're going to talk about it. Let's go ahead and talk about it right now.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and talk about it.
Let me sum this up before we let it go.
Okay.
If, in fact, Russ is still a Laker for this year, it's almost like there's going to be a WWE component to the attraction of watching the Lakers. And I think back to all the great Laker teams that I covered through the 80s, the Showtime Lakers of Magic and Kareem, obviously, and James Worthy. And now it feels like Showtime has become sideshow time because this sideshow between Russ and Pat Bev is going to be must-see TV on a nightly basis.
Can you imagine training camp practices, Skip?
Oh, it'll get wicked. I agree.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.